Okay, these notes are evaluating expressions. When it says evaluating, that simply means that you're going to substitute a value for each variable, and then you're going to use order of operations, just like the previous concept, to simplify completely. Okay, now when you are substituting those values into the expressions, you must always wrap that value in parentheses, and you're going to see that in all of the examples. So it's going to be really important. Okay, so example number 1, what is the value of 3r minus 7? So that's our expression, 3r minus 7, when r is equal to 2. Okay, so they're giving us the r value of 2, and they want us to know what is this value of the expression going to be. So now I'm going to substitute this 2 in for r. Okay, so I'm going to replace that r with a 2. So I have 3 times 2. Now again, if you notice, this 2 is wrapped in parentheses because that's where I replaced the r. Okay, so anytime you are substituting numbers in, you want to make sure you are wrapping them in parentheses. So I have 3 parentheses 2 minus 7. Okay, now you're going to follow order of operations, so it's the exact same as the previous concept. We have multiplication and we also have subtraction. So according to order of operations in PEMDAS, multiplication comes first. So 3 times 2 gives us 6. Carry down your minus 7. And then you're going to finish it. 6 minus 7 is a negative 1. So negative 1 is your final answer. Okay. Example number 2, we want to know what is the value of 3x squared when x equals negative 4. Okay, so same rules apply. I'm going to take this negative 4 and I'm going to substitute it in. I'm going to plug it in where I see an x in my given expression. So I have negative 3 times a negative 4 squared. Okay, so that square that's connected to the x has to stay with the expression. All I did was replace the x with a negative 4. Everything else gets carried down. And again, that negative 4 is wrapped in parentheses because that's what I substituted in. Now again, you're going to follow order of operations. So exponents have to come before multiplication, which means you need to take negative 4 squared first. You cannot multiply negative 3 times negative 4. Right, that is not following order of operations. So negative 4 squared gives us a positive 16. Carry down your negative 3. These are being multiplied together. You know that because there is no symbol in between the negative 3 and the parentheses, so that means it is multiplication. Negative 3 times 16 is a negative 48. Okay, so your final answer is negative 48. Now if we move over here, we're going to evaluate the expression, and this one's a little bit larger. We have negative 4 g to the third power h to the second power. Okay, so we have two variables that we are substituting. We have g is equal to 2 and h is equal to 4. Okay, so it's going to be the same as the previous problems, however you have a little bit more information to actually be substituting in. So negative 4. Instead of g, I am replacing that. I'm substituting in 2. So negative 4 times 2 to the third power, that cube power just gets carried down, times h to the second power, so that becomes 4 to the second power. Okay, so I'm just plugging in 2 for g and 4 for h. I'm then again going to follow order of operations. So exponents have to come first. 2 to the third power is 8. 4 to the second power is 16. Then you're going to carry down that negative 4. Now all you have left is multiplication, so we do this left to right. Negative 4 times 8 is a negative 32. Carry down your 16. And then the final step, negative 32 times 16 is a negative 512, which is your final answer. Now another example, what is the value of, and we have a fraction here for this expression. So we have 9x divided by 3 times the quantity of x plus 2. I want to evaluate that for when x equals 4. So all that means is everywhere I see an x, I'm going to replace it with a value of 4. Again, I'm going to wrap that in parentheses every time. So I have 9 times 4 divided by 3 times the quantity of 4 plus 2. So I just replaced each one of these x values with my new value of 4. Now I'm going to use order of operations. So I'm just going to take care of the numerator first. 9 times 4 is a 36, so that's your new numerator. In your denominator, x or parentheses have to come first, so 4 plus 2 is 6. Again, I just carry this 3 over. Now I'm going to simplify a little bit further. My numerator I'm going to leave the same as a 36. My denominator I'm going to continue to simplify, so 3 times 6 gives me 18. Now you can finally simplify this fraction, 36 divided by 18. If you're unsure, just use your calculator. You're going to end up with a final answer of 2. All right, down here at the bottom, evaluate the expression. I have 2 times the absolute value of x squared minus 15. I want to evaluate this for when x equals -3. So again, I'm going to replace everywhere I see an x in my given expression, I'm going to replace that with a -3. So when I rewrite it, I have 2 times the absolute value, which is these vertical bars are absolute value. I'm going to replace this x with a -3. So this becomes -3 squared minus 15. Now I need to take care of everything inside of these absolute value bars first. Okay, so -3 to the second power, I can simplify that to be a 9 and carry down my minus 15. Okay, again, I need to simplify what's inside of the absolute value bars before I deal with the actual absolute value. So I carry down my 2, and now 9 minus 15 gives me a -6. Okay, so I now have 2 times the absolute value of -6. Now that I have one single number inside of my absolute value, I can actually take the absolute value. Okay, now remember, absolute value is simply asking you what is the distance of this number from 0. Okay, so the distance of -6 from 0 on a number line is +6. That's why absolute values will always give you a positive value. So this becomes 2 times +6 now. 2 times 6 is 12 for your final answer. Okay. Another example, what is the value of, and we have the square root of 16, a to the 4th, b to the 2nd. So all of that is underneath of this square root bar. I want to evaluate that for when a equals 2 and b equals 6. Okay, so again, I have two variables. I'm going to replace each one of them with the new value. Okay, so I still have the square root symbol. I still have a 16 that gets carried down. This a to the 4th, well, my a value is a 2. So that's going to become 2 to the 4th power. My b value, I was told, was 6. So that becomes 6 to the 2nd power. Right? Again, everything in here is underneath of this square root symbol. Now I'm going to simplify as much as I can inside of here. My 16 gets carried down. I deal with exponents first because I'm still using order of operations. So 2 to the 4th times 6 squared. Okay, now there is a slight mistake on this example. We have the 16 that gets carried down. This 2 to the 4th power, that should actually be a 16 instead of a 4. So this should really be 16 times 16, and then times the 36 is correct. Okay, so whenever you calculate that, you're going to multiply 16 times 16 times 36. And this new value underneath the square root will be 9,216. Right? So then you're going to take the square root of that 9,216, which is going to give you a final answer of 96. Okay, so again, there was just a slight mistake on this last example. This 4 should have really been a 16, which is going to change this value and also change your final answer. So again, your final answer should be a 96. You can change that on your version of the completed notes if you have the paper copy. All right, 2 more examples, and these are going to be our word problems. Okay, so we'll read through it for you. The total cost of seeing a movie at a theater can be represented by the expression A plus R. Okay, so that's our expression, A plus R. They tell us that A is the cost in dollars of admission. Okay, so the A value is how much does it cost you to get into the movie theater to see that given movie. Okay, that's your admission cost. And R is the cost, again in dollars, of refreshments. Okay, so whatever types of drinks you may buy. Okay. So suppose that you pay $7.50 for admission and $7.25 for refreshments. We need to find the total cost of our trip to the movie theater. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is rewrite that expression that they gave to you. Our expression is A plus R. I am then going to substitute in my values. So if I'm paying $7.50 for admission, that's my A value. That was the cost of admission. So A is now $7.50 plus my R value, which was the cost of refreshments, I was told was $7.25. So I'm going to plug in my $7.25. When you add those together, you get a total cost of $14.75. All right, very last example, another word problem. This is going to be finding the volume of a sphere. Okay, so they tell us that the radius is 9 centimeters. Okay, and they give you the formula for volume of a sphere. It's not something that you have to have memorized. So the formula for volume of a sphere is V equals 4/3 times pi times r to the 3rd power. Okay, that r is your radius. So we want to round our answer to the nearest tenth when we are done. So again, the only variable I have here is r. Okay, now remember pi is an actual number. You have a pi symbol on your calculator, or you can use 3.14. Either one is perfectly fine, but it's an actual number. We're not substituting anything in for pi. My only variable here is r, my radius. So I'm going to rewrite my equation. I have v equals 4/3 pi, and now instead of r, I am plugging in, I'm substituting in the value of 9. And again, you notice it is wrapped in parentheses. Anytime you are plugging in a value, you want to always wrap it in parentheses. Okay, so 4/3 times pi, 9 to the 3rd power is 729. Okay, so I'm just simplifying that one piece. Then the rest of this you can type in your calculator at once. 4/3. Be careful, remember to wrap that 4/3 in parentheses so that your calculator knows it is a fraction. So it's going to be 4/3 times pi times 729. That's going to give you a final volume of 3,053.6 cubic centimeters. Okay, anytime you're calculating volume, your answer is always going to be cubed or raised to the 3rd power. Okay, and again, if you notice the equal sign is that squiggly equal sign, that just means approximately, and that's because we had to round our answer. This is not an exact answer because we rounded it to the nearest tenth. Okay, so that is evaluating expressions. And again, remember to always wrap the value in parentheses that you are substituting in, and then continue to use order of operations just like in the previous concept.